The Munich Massacre of 1972 by Dalton Williams. It started off as all other Olympic Games did until September 5th. At 4:30 a.m., a group of Palestinian terrorists called Black September invaded the apartment of Israeli athletes. It is estimated that the number of Black September members is in the thousands. Black September is an organization of guerrillas. A guerrilla is a small group of combats including armed civilians using military tactics. This was not the first time that Black September was exposed. Black September attacking the Israeli athletes at Munich was the first major public action made by the organization itself. The Olympic Village was guarded by only a 6-foot-tall chain fence. At 4:30 on the 11th day of the Games, 8 terrorists jumped this fence to enter the village. The terrorists surveyed the building and, using available data provided by the Olympic officials, knew exactly where their victims' apartments were. When the attackers arrived at Building 31 Colony Strasse, their first destination was Apartment 1. In this room was wrestling referee Josef Gutfried, weightlifting coach Tuvia Skolasky, and wrestling coach Mashi Winberg. Gutfried was the first to be awoken, but he quickly awoken his roommates. When they realized what was happening, Skolasky escaped through a close-by window, and Winberg attacked the door to fight back. Before moving on to Apartment 2, Winberg told the attackers that Apartment 2 was not a part of the Israeli Olympic team and that they should just move on to Apartment 3. Winberg said this because in Apartment 3 were weightlifters who had a better chance at fighting back rather than the athletes in Apartment 2. Instead, the 6 weightlifters and wrestlers were held captive. The hostages were taken back to Apartment 1, where already wounded Winberg fought back again. This distraction allowed enough time for Gad to Strawberry to escape through the parking deck. Winberg's second attack wasn't a complete failure. Before being shot, he knocked one terrorist unconscious and slashed another with a fruit knife. With Winberg, weightlifter Josef Romano attacked the terrorist before being killed. The remaining hostages were Gutfried, fencing master Andre Spitzer, sharpshooting coach Kahat Shore, track and field coach Amite Zwesha Brewer, wrestling judge Yaakov Springer, wrestler Elazar Haflin and Mark Salvin, and weightlifters David Berger and Zier Friedman. American track and field coach Bill Bowerman realized what was happening and notified German police. During an attempt to rescue the hostages, German police were offered an agreement. Black September's only reason for holding the Israeli athletes hostages was trying to free 200 political prisoners. To get the situation more popular, while Spitzer was talking with one of the German police to prove the Israelis were still alive, he was pounded with the butt of an AK-47 by a terrorist. Not only was this in view of the German police who was communicating with him, but also international television cameras around the scene. German police decided to take action rather than accept the offer of trade. The authorities gathered the Black September members and their hostages and led them to a helicopter. When Germany saw that the group had to walk 200 meters through underground garages, they decided to strike again. Weekend competitive shooters were chosen as snipers, and there were 6 or 5 armed police inside the helicopter waiting for them. At last minute, the policemen aboard the ship agreed to back out of the mission without consulting the Central Command first, leaving the 5 untrained snipers to do the job. When the helicopter landed, the kidnappers had already held the 2 pilots captive also. The terrorists realized they had just landed in a trap. While 2 of the September members sought out the new grounds, The two in charge of keeping hostage of the pilots were killed. Due to poor lighting, it was hard for the snipers to see their target, making this counterattack 10 times harder. In panic, one of the September members shot the rest of the hostages. Israel warned not only the Palestinian guerrilla organizations but also the all Arab nations that they would be held responsible for the death of their 11 athletes and coaches. One of the leaders of the group, Jamal al-Ghashi, said, "I am proud of what I did in Munich because it helped the Palestinian cause. Before Munich, the world had no idea about our struggle, but on that day, the word Palestinian was repeated over and over." By the Arabs choosing the Olympic Games to attack, they showed that they were targeting civilized conduct among nations, not necessarily Israel. This caused fear for future United Nations meetings and other peace meetings. The United States of America was very cautious of new Arab immigrants after Munich. One example of this was Ralph Schwab. He was a manager of an Arab restaurant in Midtown, New York, who received tons of death threats after the incident. Hundreds of Vietnamese formed a new community in New York in order to avoid a civil war and poverty in their homeland. The nations who were not involved in the massacre were really respectful. The games were put off a day later so that the Israelis and the others involved could recover emotionally. After the memorial service, many of the athletes' drive to compete was gone, although they stayed there and did their best. One specific Israel athlete, Shaul Ladny, was a survivor of both the Munich massacre and the Holocaust. Ladny can thank Wingberg for his survival of Munich. He was located in apartment 2 when Wingberg told the terrorists to move on to apartment 3. The first time he escaped death was during the Holocaust. He was 5 years old. His parents fled him to Hungary due to German bombers attacking Belgrade. When he was 8 years old, he was captured by Nazis but was released in December of 1944 thanks to the ransom paid by American Jews. Landley dominates in the Olympic walking events, placing first in the 50-mile walk, the 50-kilometer walk, and 100-kilometer walk, although he has never had a coach. Thank you for watching my video on the Munich Massacre. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Have a nice day.